Peace. Welcome to Value Talks, the podcast where you dig deep into what truly matters to you. I'm your host, Pat, and in each episode, we'll explore the values that shape who you are, how we live, and the choices that we make. Welcome to Value Talks, the podcast for folks looking to move through life with confidence, clarity, and alignment. I'm Coach Pat, and today we're talking about a value that I'm not going to give it to you just yet, but I'll give you clues followed by a riddle. And by that time, if you didn't catch it, that's okay. I'll tell you what the value we'll be talking about today is. So it's not a hype. It's not grind culture. The value that we'll be talking about today is steady. It's centered kind of value. It's a centered kind of value. And it's the kind of value that moves quiet, but it hits deep. So let's transition to the riddle. Maybe that might give a little bit more context into the value that we'll be talking about today. The riddle goes like this. What moves with you, but doesn't make no noise? It builds empires if you lock it in, but it costs everything when you don't. Do you know what value we're talking about? If you don't, that's fine. The value that we'll be talking about today is focus. See, before something can be thoroughly understood, I think it's only respectful to try and find a working definition or a what's what of the thing that we're talking about, in this case being focus. So when we think about focus, what is focus? Focus is more than attention. It's direction. It's what gets the best version of yourself and not your leftovers. It's a decision to keep making, especially when life throws you different types of noises your way. See, when you think about or you read about or you see folks who embody focus, focus shapes their reality. It's where they put their attention, and even some of you listening today, where you put your attention, your energy, and your intention, that it becomes real, moment by moment, day by day, month by month, experience by experience. We don't just see with our eyes alone. We see with what it is that we prioritize within our lives. And most people, they're leaking energy on things that don't even feed their future. So many different examples that I can think of, experiences or distractions that sucks the life force out of the focus that we could be, utilizing in different areas or callings or talents that we may have and that we need to develop or, evolve. So how did this topic come about for me? Well, it was two things that I'll kind of blend into one as a personal anchor at this part of the show. And starting off this past week, today, I believe is the 18th of July, the Genius Act was passed. Real U.S. legislation on stable coins. And when I was listening and I just reflecting on everything, it hit me. I remember hosting workshops on cryptocurrency years ago. It's part of my tutoring services because I always wanted to provide some unorthodox tutoring services, not just the context that is being provided in school, but education as a tool of liberation. You would see that on my old website and probably even on my website now. And how I was doing that before it became mainstream, developing the PowerPoints from scratch because ChatGPT wasn't out by that time. Or at least that I know of. Dealing with handful of students, but having fears, being, a little adjunct professor for a little bit, like all these new things was happening and I was delivering because I toiled through the night to study, and I was just studying for me because I always want to see the obvious before it's obvious to everyone else. And going through that process was new, it was challenging, but the conviction that I had was loud within me, and it displayed in my performance where they would call me back time after time for another workshop. I didn't know if it would matter back then because that wasn't my concern. I just knew I had to build. And also within this past week, a close friend texted me the other day as part of a brothers group that we pretty much have. And he had said something within the text because I was just kind of reminding them, hey, this is the stuff that we discussed years back. Now is coming up in this day and time. And I just want to encourage y'all to, you know, stay the course and the whole night, all that good talk. But the brother has said, I was telling my partner that you are definitely an asset to our community. Blessings, bro. And that resonated with me in a way that, of course, I appreciated, and it was warming to my heart, right? Not because I needed the praise in the moment, but because I almost forgot the weight of what I do is not just carried in the moment, but it's carried into the future that you are confident about. Remember how I said earlier that focus shapes your reality? Well, that focus it doesn't only shape the reality that you are presently in now. It shapes the reality that you are walking into, which is called the future. So as I was sitting on these things and just pondering on things and reflecting really at this point in time, I came up with some questions that I had to ask myself because before I can coach somebody else, I always coach myself. It's not a week that goes by that I don't coach myself. And, you know, sometimes we don't know how much we've done because we're so focused on what's left to do. So I asked myself a set of questions that I'm going to share with you because y'all my group, y'all my community. And the questions are three, but they go like this. Ask yourself, what do I know I've been about, but I haven't claimed out loud? The second question is, what parts of me have stayed locked in, even when nobody was watching? And that one is a hard one because, excuse my language, but shit could look real, real difficult at times, right? For those of you who are involved in cryptocurrency or even investing as a whole, right? Sometimes the picks that you have, they're not moving, right? But you stay diligent, you stay the course, you still do your qualitative research and your quantitative research, and you still say, you know what? I know what I know that I know that I know. All right. But that question again, what parts of me have stayed locked in even when no one was watching? Because why would you teach something that you wouldn't do yourself? And then the third question is, what is my main focus right now? And is it feeding my future or just keeping me busy? As I think about when I was teaching at the college virtually, it was like such a feeling of like pride and wow, like, yo, like this is amazing. Like I didn't know I was going to be in this place, in this space, but it was also like, wow, your due diligence, your research that you have taken from the labs of neuroscience and just used as a framework to shift into bettering yourself, your situation, your legacy, and your people. You have utilized it in the area of finance. It was like, wow, all that focus that I had in those days are still serving me up until today because I remain focused through and through. And now it's feeding me in ways that I'm just so grateful. But those are the three questions that I want you to ask yourself and do that deep dive, right? Make that a priority to at least do one or all of those questions and see what comes up for you. But we like to do the exploration of the spectrum. And this spectrum on focus is going to be a little bit different because we're not going to explore the spectrum of focus itself, but the ingredients that make up the focus spectrum. And I'm pretty sure there's more, but in my opinion, I think there's three main ones that we can talk about today, and let's break them down. The first one is energy. With energy on one end of the spectrum is an underexpression of, hey, look, I'm tired. I really ain't got it right now. Um, I'm under focused, right? I'm busy. But when you really look at it, it's always an excuse, month by month, year by year. And then you wonder why you're going nowhere or you have nothing to show for it. But when you really look at the activities of what it is that you're doing, you're scattered. And you always talk about I'm multitasking, but the outcomes are always burnout, not productivity. So what happens when you are over focused in the arena of energy? Yo, I can't stop grinding. Rest feels wrong. That kind of hustle trap. I got to get it out the mud. But after you get it out the mud, when are you going to get out of the mud mentality? Motion doesn't always mean progress. So where's the balance when it comes to energy? I know what needs my energy today. That statement, let it resonate with you and let it be true. This shows that there is purposeful movement in what it is that you do, as well as when you flip the coin of that, you know how to protect your bandwidth, not just from other people, but from your own self. Then the second ingredient to the spectrum on focus is direction. When direction is underfocused, it's this notion of I'm not even sure what I'm working towards. The vision is not clear. It's very, very foggy. You ever, when you drive in and that fog is either on a front uh, mirror or window or the rear window, that type of fog. And all types or different forms of distractions begin to win. And when you're over focused, it's this or nothing, right? I don't see anything else. That tunnel vision blocked from growth pivots that are available to you, but you're not taking the opportunity because you don't want to see anything else but this. So where do we find the balance within direction? Flexible focus, adaptable focus, movement with clarity. I got a lane and I know when to switch gears. The next one is identity. Sorry about that. Had to take a quick call, but we left off on identity, right? And when identity is under focus, it has this undercurrent of shape shifting, right? Where you dim the core of what it is or who it is that you are. Um, and it comes out or it sounds like, I don't know who I am right now. Um, and that is how the piece of identity can take away or extract from your level of focus that you have towards a goal or a plan that you have in place. And when identity is over focused, it's your worth gets hijacked by your output. And what I mean by that is, if I'm not producing results, if I'm not producing this, if I'm not producing that, I feel useless. So, where do we find the balance when it comes to identity? Your focus, or you focus as you are, not who you pretend to be. So, you show up with intention and you know what you bring, and you let the chips fall where they may. So, as you think about identity, as you think about direction, as you think about energy, where am I, or where are you on each of these pieces that contribute to focus? What needs adjusting? Is it my energy? Is it my direction or my sense of self? And how are you going to um, attend to those things, right? Am I under focus? Am I over focus? And where do you go from there, right? Because you have the answers. You are the one driving the car of your life, and you know how you've been doing things and what's the best turns to take or the best exits to get off at. So I do want to throw in a little caveat here to just let you know that focus, you just don't buy it in the store and it takes place, right? There are external things that are working. I won't say against us, because I think these companies and these organizations, they just do what they do to make a profit um, at the end of the day. And what I mean by that is, there's a spotlight that I would like to shine on a fallacy called false urgency. And what false urgency does is that it's a fallacy that tricks you into thinking everything needs your attention right now. And we know the distractions, and we don't know some of the distractions that actually exist. And the reason why putting a spotlight on false urgency is important is because there's this thing within that if I don't respond, if I don't react, if I don't post, if I don't show up, I'll be missing something. But urgency without clarity, that is just anxiety in disguise. Real focus pauses before it proceeds into any direction, into any project, into anything. There is a moment of pause. Now, I didn't say it takes a sabbatical or a vacation of, years. You can't do that with everything in life. But there's a focused pause before you proceed. If you think about it as an item or something that we use every day, like a hose, right? Like a garden hose. If a garden hose is open too wide and the water sprays out, it's going to go everywhere. The pressure is weak, it's messy, it's all over the place, and it's not targeted. But when the nozzle is narrow, you get quality pressure, you get quality precision, and it's the same thing with your attention. The same thing with your time, the same thing with your purpose. Now, everyone experiences focus in different ways. I want to do a deeper dive into how focus may show up in different stages of our lives. I'm going to start with the 20-year-olds because I can't think back to what I was focused on when I was a teenager. But I mean, I still, yeah, I guess I do. But I think 20 is just a very critical point in your 20s. So I want to start from there. In your 20s, focus feels very scattered, like you're tasting life, you're figuring things out. There's a whole bunch of exploration going on. And then the 30s come where focus says, I need your discipline in a very quiet but stern way. So you have to choose your yeses and you have to decide on your nos. And from friends and families and people that I work with, as far as coaching, from what I hear, your 40s and above, or your 40s and beyond, focus becomes legacy. It can either come as a statement or it can come as a question. But what I've noticed is that it's not just what you build, it's who are you building it for? As we go through life, we will find the answers on how to reclaim our focus, how to shift our focus, how to start to focus on the things that matter most to us. But as far as today's show, here are some takeaways that I would just submit as a reminder respectfully to you is time. On that clock, what part of the day, be it an hour, be it 30 minutes, be it 15 minutes, be it well, not 8 hours, but 2 hours, 3 hours, what part of the day, of the time, is sacred for you, where it's set focus, no noise, just execution? The other takeaway that I would submit to you is, how do you audit your attention? What do you look at as you are auditing it? Act like you are an inspector. What are you looking for? Identify what gets the best energy from you and what didn't deserve the best energy from you. Also, looking at the past to revisit old wins, it doesn't hurt. It's not bad. It can be proof that you've been building, and it can reignite your why. Or for some, it can show you where or how your last success has possibly currently become your greatest enemy to work against you in pushing and moving forward. The other takeaway is that the fallacy that I highlighted earlier about false urgency. Put a limitation on that. Every email does not need your immediate response. Every phone call does not need to be picked up and answered. Every text message does not warrant a reply. Everything cannot be a priority all at the same time. Because what happens is that you will starve the protection of your peace. So, Here are some other questions that you can walk away with, and then we will land the plane somewhere around here. What has been quietly asking for your full focus? What would change if you locked in for real this month or the rest of this year? And what would you lock into? Also, who am I when I'm focused? And who benefits from this version of me now or in the future? Like for me, when I think about building out legacy, I think about the generations that I've come from and the generations that will be looking to me and what it is that I did at this time. As we land the plane here, focus ain't just about doing more. It's about doing what matters with clarity, with care, and with commitment. And if you ever forget how far you've come, remember, legacy doesn't always make noise while it's building. Sometimes it just needs one law to be passed or one message from a brother to remind you that you've been him, you've been the one. Stay steady, stay sharp, keep building. This was Value Talks. Focus. Coach Pat, I appreciate you, and I'm signing out.